You're listening to Hope FM. The Sound.
103. Connecting communities.
We have Mrs. Cilliers, who's going to be joining us from now till the hour 6 o'clock. And we'll be talking all things geography right here on 103 Hope FM, connecting communities. And we already have Mrs. Cilliers just on the line. Mrs. Cilliers, good evening. How are you?
Yes, hello. I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm great. How are you, ma'am?
No, excellent. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much. Ma'am, you're going to be with us from now till the hour 6 o'clock as we talk all things geography right here on 103 Hope FM. And we can begin with your lesson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Afternoon, all the wonderful geographers out there. And I hope that the short information regarding geographical information systems will lift a little bit of the darkness regarding this interesting but quite difficult topic for many of you. Now, geographical information system, or what I'm just shortly going to call it GIS, is the study of geography that will make possible for us to answer questions about the world around us by a geographical information system, which is a software program on a computer that is going to connect all the information where phenomenon is with the information that describes the different phenomenon. Now, that sounds like really a handful of gibberish, and what on earth does that mean? Now, for me, it always makes sense to rather know what am I going to do with this program before I start to find out how does it work. So what are the uses of a GIS, a Geographical Information System? Well, the whole thing is it's about using a location. Location will be the coordinates, the latitude and the longitude line. And using that location and linking with the location a lot of information that you can then eventually put on a map and then make management decisions by looking at this map. Okay, so we are going to use GIS, for example, in administration, where a GIS is then usually used to define boundaries, to do government planning, to manage projects, and so forth. If I can just link that to COVID-19, which we currently see, I believe that many of you have seen on the TV, on social media, maps that indicate with a dot or a large circle areas where there are lots of COVID cases combined or compared to areas where there are lesser COVID-19 disease problems. So that map which you see there has been made by means of a GIS. Therefore, geographic information visualized on a map by using the data concerning specific countries and then linking it on a legend or a key that will show you the incidences in a specific country compared to other countries. So that is, for instance, by administration. You can also use it for facilities and asset management, like most cities and large enterprises that will use a GIS to manage water and power networks. Or you can use it to link your demographies with, like the census and various surveys and market analysis. Those people use a GIS to create a map and models the location and the distribution and the behavior of people. So things like, for instance, government planning, such as economic development and service delivery, or whether there should be schools or hospitals or clinics, that can be done via a GIS. Just other places where we can also use GIS will be for conservation, in which we can map protected areas and then develop a boundary or a buffered area around this protected area where we should not have any development. Or we can have it for observation or measurement and monitoring of the earth. Things like, for instance, how can we do some risk analysis and risk management to avoid disasters? If there's a tropical cyclone coming to an area, how can we, in good time, when using remote sense satellite data together with a GIS and maybe stuff like altitude, flood lines, etc., how can we use all that information to, in good time and in advance, warn the people about the risk of possible flooding, loss of life, and so on. Okay, so those are the applications amongst many other applications that we can use a GIS for. So let's quickly look at what is the GIS then. We know about the components of a GIS. You've been studying that since grade 10, which tells you that you need the data. You need the people that's going to put the data into the computer system. The computer itself is going to be the hardware. The software will be the kind of program with which you are going to work inside your computer. And then there are obviously lots of procedures that you are going to follow, in which you are eventually going to get to your final mapped product on which you can do your management of data. Okay, so in a GIS, these data, whatever the data are, I'm going to look at an example a little later on. All these data will be then linked to a location. And remember, in geography, everything is about location. It's about where on the earth are we and what is happening at that specific place. Whether it's coming from the atmosphere, whether it's coming from the geomorphology, the geology, the environment, the people, the settlements, doesn't matter. That is what geography is all about. It's always linked to a specific location. Okay, so now we are having lots of data that we are going to use in a GIS. Where are the data coming from? Okay, the data for a GIS is usually digital data that we can place in tables or in numbers, or sometimes we can also use digital photographs. Stuff like census figures, traffic counts, market research information, police records, all those kind of things that can refer to a specific point or coordinates on the globe. Those are my digital data that I'm going to use. Then my data in my GIS can also consist of maps. Now, maps are the usual normal maps that you see and that you work with, amongst all other kinds of maps, not only 1 to 50,000 topographical maps or also photo maps. You can have larger scale maps, smaller scale maps, doesn't matter. But these maps can then be converted into information in a digital form that the GIS can use. And the map, the data form that we usually find this map in, will be vector data. We'll discuss the vector and raster data format a little bit later. And then lastly, the data that we also use can come from remote sensing, which can be either done via satellite imagery or imagery from aerial photos. And in the current modern age in which we are living, everything will be digital photographs, and therefore those data will be given in raster. Okay, let's quickly go to what are the different types of data, the vector data versus the raster data. Now, the raster data are data files that consist of rows of similar cells, and that rows of cells, each one of the cells will be called a pixel. Now, the raster data models will then be used to indicate things like areas with the same height above sea level, or the same temperature, or the same rainfall. And these data, the raster files, can then be very easily and quickly manipulated in the GIS, but very important, they have less specific detail. The larger my pixel will be, the lesser the detailed data I will have. And they are also less visually stimulating than vector data, because it's got a granular or a block pixel form, so it's not so easy to see what you are looking at. But the advantage of raster data is that it's going to be easily manipulated, and the computer can work very quickly with that kind of information. Vector data is data that is broken down into 3 basic data types, which will be points, lines, and polygons. A point will be a single phenomenon, for instance, something like a lamp post or a reservoir or a post box or anything of which you only have one single phenomena on your map, and you will indicate then that point with a set of coordinates with your longitude and your latitude, and that point where those two lines will join one another, that will be then your point data. Two sets of data, a latitude and a longitude for one point. In a line, the line consists of a series of coordinates, and they will be indicated with lots of points that's then linked to one another. And that link to one another forms the line. So one line, unfortunately, has a lot of data because each time you have a point, you have two sets of data, a coordinate for latitude and a coordinate for longitude. And then the linkage between those two data will then be called the nodes, the start and the end point of the line between your 2 points. And lastly, the polygon, that one consists out of a series of coordinates that form a boundary together, and everything inside the boundary will then be gathered as a specific phenomena that you want it to be. For example, a dam or a park or a recreational area will then be indicated with a polygon. So it's a boundary, a series of coordinates on the outside that forms a boundary line, and everything inside this boundary will then have the same characteristic like a dam or a park, and it's called a polygon of data. Okay, so what do we do with this data? Then we have our data, and we are now going to look at the two types of data, the spatial data, which will be the point in space, therefore not in space up there where we have the moon and the stars and the sun, but the space on Earth, therefore the latitude and coordinates of the longitude where those two lines are going to meet one another. That's called my spatial data. And my spatial data gives me the information about my location and my shape of my geographic feature. Then secondly, all my data that are now going to describe what is going on at this specific point of my spatial data. That is called my attribute data. So my attribute is the information about that specific place. And it can be anything. It can be, for instance, if I take a school as a point on a map, the place where we will find the school, then the attributes about that school will be the school's name, the school's address, the name of the principal of the school, the amount of learners in the school, the amount of staff at the school. All those data that we can link to the specific point in space will then be my attributes. Therefore, it's going to describe what is going on at that specific point. Another term that you have been coming across will be buffering. Now, a buffer will occur when a specific distance around a specific phenomena is going to be encircled so that you can't go inside or outside that specific area. It's a demarcated area around a specific spatial space. So if you have, for instance, a river, and you want to demarcate or buffer an area around the river where you cannot build houses, then you will say you are buffering or demarcating an area surrounding the river, and that's a buffer to prohibit you for any kind of infrastructure or building that you can do inside that specific buffered off area. Okay, so those are all the terms. But now, Once you've started the terms, how do you answer a question regarding GIS in the examination? So I've set up a practical example with some questions to explain to you how you are going to use your GIS information in an example in the exam about how are you going to practically apply this information. So first of all, always study your definition. And that is something that will give you some free marks if you just know your definitions. But now, I have an example. The example will say, the question, the Department of Education wants to build a new secondary school in your area. They ask the help of a GIS contractor to find out whether the plan is viable and where the best site for such a school will be. So what is the contractor going to do? From the municipality, the contractor is going to get a map of the area in question, and now the contractor will have to find spaces, open spaces where this specific piece of land can be used as a new school ground. And in order to find the best location for the school, he's going to need some information to assist him in this process. Now, when you have a GIS map that you are going to compile, you are going to put a lot of information in layers on top of one another, so that eventually, if you have a see-through of all these layers, then you can see where you can find the best location. So, on layer 1, for instance, what kind of layers am I going to in my GIS to find out which position or location will be the best for my school? So, I've got 6 layers. You can have many more, but 6 layers that I've chosen so far. The first layer will have the contours to indicate the landscape. Remember, you can't build a school on a very steep gradient. That's not going to work. So, first of all, you would want to have a relative flat landscape. Therefore, the GIS program will now have to search for an area with a gradual gradient. In this layer and in the search, the query that you are going to give for the GIS, you are going to tell the GIS to discard all areas with a steep gradient. It means all areas where your contour lines are closely packed together. Therefore, the GIS will only look for spaces with flat gradients. Now, the format in which your contours will be in the vector format of lines. Layer 2 can be something, for instance, like accessibility. You can't have a school if there aren't a proper road network connecting the school with the rest of the community. So the school will need to have an easy accessibility. Therefore, the computer will need to find an area that's close to main roads or bus routes or taxi routes. So it will, again, dismiss areas that will not be close to good accessibility. This accessibility road networks will then again be in the format of vectors in lines. Another layer can be something like services, because you cannot have a school where there aren't sewage or electricity services, for instance, at the site. So all areas without sewage or electricity services will again immediately be dismissed. And the format can be points, for instance, for sewage or lines for electricity. Or places then on a map that's far away or that doesn't have access to sewage or electricity will then not be considered for the school and will immediately be dismissed by your GIS system. Your next layer can be attributes like the total population. So let's say within 3-kilometer radius of the new development, there must be a specific number of people living there. This immediately indicates a buffering of 3 kilometers around possible sites that needs to be drawn to include only the population with in the buffered area, so that you see that you allow as many as possible people inside the buffered area. It makes access again very easy. All areas outside the 3-kilometer radius will then be dismissed and cannot be taken into account for the best location. A next layer can be something like ownership and prices of land. And those can be indicated in points in the vector format with a linked attribute table with the necessary information. So each open site can have then an owner. You have the owner's name as well as the price for the available land in the attribute, and then you can immediately, when your map is finally produced, you can immediately see what the area will be, what the price will be, and where you can find the owner to make an offer. The next layer, the last layer that I had here for the example, was from census data. You would like to have the average age of the population. An older community will not necessarily need a secondary school. So you are going to discard areas where there are no real school-going children. Younger families with children that's still growing up will need the school facilities nearby. Therefore, again, you will have census data in the form of attribute tables with the ages of the community that's going to be provided there. Now, all this information is going to be overlaid in the GIS program. And you're going to tell the program to use the process called querying to consider all that information over a large area and to produce to you a map with all the information taken into account with one or more suitable sites where you can have your new school. That map will most probably eventually be in a raster format because it's only going to indicate to you the identified area or maybe more than one area that might be suitable for your new school. Remember that this map is a solution that is linked to the real coordinates. Therefore, it's a geographical information system. And now the department can only go and visit the areas that were indicated on the map to help them in their decision-making process. You can now think for yourself what the amount of time is that you are going to save if you can use a GIS with all that information that you can just link to your computer system, and then within a few minutes it can give you the answer of something that could have taken you months of data that you had to go and visit places, find out what's going on in the area, etc. Now by linking a few sets of data together, you can immediately get the best answer. Okay, now I truly hope that this very short lesson regarding geographical information systems has given you a better idea of what it is and what the scope is of what we are working with. Remember, geographical information systems is all about geography that makes it possible for us to answer questions about the world around us. All the people, all the animals, all the vegetation, the climate, the water, any extra information regarding a specific site. In a GIS, all of those information can be linked. So just to shortly look at all the stuff again, remember, it's about the geographical information system, about the spatial data, that is data that is linked with coordinates to a specific place on Earth. Then linked to that will be your data that can be either in the form of tables, photographs, satellite imagery, information regarding climate or people or census data. All that information can be linked to a specific point on Earth, and those will be your attribute data that will give you more information regarding that specific place. So you've got your spatial data, the coordinates, and your attribute data that give you more information about a specific place. And the method in which you are going to use this data will be in the form of layering. Each layer will have a specific type of information, like for example, natural vegetation or man-made pipelines or man-made infrastructure or built-up areas. And each one of these different things will be put separately on its own layer to make the information easily displayable, to easily to see on a map exactly where are the information that you need per layer. Only vegetation, or only drainage, or only rock layers, or only geomorphology, or in the case of man-made layers, pipelines, or only agriculture, or only roads, or maybe some things like transport, which might include roads and railway lines and ships if we are living in an area where we have river or sea transport, air transport, that can also be part of the transport layer. Then you can have each type of information on its own separate set of layers. Then what you do, you take each one of your separate sets of layers. Remember, they are all about the information regarding the same area. They are all linked to a specific coordinate. Then these layers are placed or projected on top of each other. And now you can have sort of a see-through look at all your different layers of information on top of one another to show you all the information linked to a specific area and the data that you need for that area. When you have questions that you have to answer in the exams, remember they're going to ask you about your attributes, what is an attribute, and to give an attribute. Now, attributes are only descriptive data about a specific location. Your location will be your spatial data because it shows you the place in the space where it is located. And then the last thing that you need to remember for a big summary is your difference between your raster data, which will be data files that's consisting of rows and cells and pixels, and then also your vector data, which will be your data that will be easily depicted in points, lines, and polygons with data that's got lots of information in it. And those are the two types of data that you must be able to work with. Now, I thank you, and I really do hope that this information gave more clarity regarding geographical information systems. And what I would wish you is to have some less anxiety regarding this product, the geographical information system. And remember, it's like what we need to see produced on a map. Therefore, we can make easy management decisions by the look of a map and the information that will be given on a map. Therefore, geographically, information system of stuff that's being linked to a specific location. I thank you, and over back to the radio station.
Yes, ma'am. We have a question here saying that, hi, ma'am. My name is Luando, and I would like to ask, what is the meaning of the word GIS?
What is the name of?
What is the meaning of the word GIS?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. I don't know whether the line is very clear. The name of the red GIS.
No, ma'am. What is the meaning of the name GIS?
Oh, the meaning is geographical. The G stands for geographical, therefore linked to a place on Earth. I for information, therefore linking all the other attribute information to a system, and the system is then actually the description for the computer program, the software that can then do the querying and the answers and the management of the data for you.
All right. We definitely just believe that you managed to get that answer from Mrs. Cilliers right on 103 Hope FM. Ma'am, basically, thank you so very much for the lesson today. If there are any questions in regarding today's lesson, we'll definitely just spare them and then we will take them again on our following lesson.
Okay, that's excellent. No problem with that. I can also send this lesson, the information that I've given. I have it in a Word format, so if there would be anybody that would be interested to having this this lesson in a printed format, they can contact me and I can give you my email address and I will send them the information.
All right, thank you. I think it will also be another great way in which the learners will definitely get the material from you. So I'll just definitely would like to get your email address and then you can send it to me and then I will just forward them to the students.
Okay.
Okay.
I will do that.
Thank you so very much.
I sent the email. Okay, thank you very much.
I'll contact
Have
you
a nice
privately
day.
concerning the email address.
Are you going to contact me again?
Yeah, I'll contact you privately within a few minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
You too. Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
103.